All right, good evening, everyone. Welcome back. Emunah class number 6. And I just want to dedicate this evening's class for a speedy recovery for Adel Rivka Bas Chaya Sarah, Shlomo Ben Moshe, Anita Yael Bas Rostova, and also for a safe trip for Yehudis Bas Sarah. And all right, so first thing I want to talk about tonight is, this is class number 6, and I just want to know if anyone's willing to talk about, has Emunah helped you since we started this class? Has it come up in any of your situations recently in life? Did you have a hardship, and then you had to remember to have Emunah, that everything's for your best? If not, maybe something about gratitude, kind of helping you through a tough situation. Nobody? You have one?
Well,
Here.
coming back from Myrtle Beach, we were, of course, faced with the house, 60-year-old house, and at that age, it starts needing work, just like an automobile at 100,000 miles, or like a person at 60,
Okay.
much less 71.
All right.
And so it's, it's easy to rant and get in a funk about all of the issues. Are we doing the right thing? Should we just sell the house? Mm-hmm. But all the houses would be sold in this neighborhood, in walking distance of the shore.
All right, so Emunah kicked in, and how? You said everything's going to be okay, or we're going to stick to it.
Yeah.
Okay. Very good.
Leave it in Hashem's hands.
Very nice. Isn't that much more relaxing?
Who do you trust? Other
Right.
than Johnny Carson show, yeah.
Anybody else?
Well, again, the token comes in handy, because there's always something during the day
Okay.
that reminds me to be grateful, reminds me to ask for more Emunah.
Very good. That's awesome. So you're using your little gratitude token that we talked about earlier. Carry around something. Here's my little gratitude token for this week. Is a little heart-shaped
Oh, cool.
rock that I got at the crystal shop.
Is that turquoise?
I think it's turquoise, yeah. And I don't know. I just put it in my pocket, and every time I touch it, Judy has a really nice one.
It's a heart-shaped rock I found on the beach in Tel Aviv.
Awesome. So we both have heart-shaped rocks.
I used to
That's
carry it
amazing.
in my wallet, but I thought, you know what, I need to wear it.
Yeah, exactly.
Have it.
So whenever we touch it or remember, it just helps me with my mindfulness. It helps me remember to be grateful, and even for the struggles. And sure enough, so I want to get right into it. I want to go to the Garden of Emunah, which is basically like our source material for this week, and basically for the whole class. But so this is the universal Garden of Emunah for everybody, Jews and non-Jews alike. And this is our guide. This is a formula for success in life. So we're going to pick up on page 36. And I wanted to talk about the beginning of Emunah. The Book of Splendor says that the beginning of Emunah is the awareness that in addition to a physical world, there is a spiritual world as well. Nachman of Breslov implores us to remember the world to come, the spiritual world. Indeed, he must regard the spiritual world as the only world. Why? Any emotionally sound person will not do anything without a purpose. For example, if you ask a person to lift and lower his hand for an hour for no reason, he'll surely refuse, even for a handsome payment, for he cannot see the purpose of what he's asked to do. If we can understand this, then we can rest assured that the Creator doesn't do a thing without an express purpose. It's absurd to think that the Creator created the world in its infinite details, majesty, and phenomenal beauty and wonders for no reason. It's also absurd to think that the Creator created man, such a magnificent creation with amazing intellectual powers and powers of the soul, for no reason. Everyone must ask himself, can my purpose in life be fulfilled in a world that terminates in death and decomposition? Would the Creator give a person such wonderful spiritual and intellectual tools to enjoy 70 or 80 years of suffering on earth, and that's it? Do the spiritual tools disappear when the body's heart stops beating? That's unthinkable. We must conclude that the soul continues on after the death of the body, for then it merits its reward in the world to come. There are rewards and punishments that are manifest in this world. An example is the success a person merits when he does the will of the Creator. The opposite is also true. The tribulations a person invokes by transgressing the Creator's will and right path, and to learn whether or not he is pursuing the correct options in life. The tribulations a person invokes by transgressing the Creator's will. These tribulations are designed to help a person find the right path and to learn whether or not he is pursuing the correct options in life. As such, a person's tribulations have purpose to help guide them and not to punish or torment him, God forbid. If there were a material world only, then one's difficulties in life make no sense. The Bible gives an example of someone who killed a person accidentally in a manner that wasn't at all premeditated. He was chopping wood and his axe flew off the handle and fell a person who was standing nearby. Yet, as the famed biblical commentator Shlomo Yitzchaki notes, the killing wasn't accidental. The dead person deserved to be killed for some crime that he or she did that was never discovered. And the killer, who is punished with exile, had committed some undiscovered wrongdoing that is punishable by exile. Nothing is happenstance, and everything that occurs in the world is a product of precision and precise divine providence, or hashgacha pratis. We learn from the above that divine providence is the catalyst of all accidents and tragedies. A flesh and blood bystander sees that a person stood under a ladder and got killed. A person fell off the ladder right on top of him and killed him. It looks like an accident, but in truth, it's the product of precision, divine justice, and numerous considerations down to the tiniest detail. Moses wanted to understand the ways of the Creator. The Creator said, "Come up to me on the mountain." On the way up the mountain, Moses saw a strange sight. A person came to drink water from a brook, and when he bent down to drink, his wallet full of money fell out of his pocket without his noticing. He got up and continued on his way. A second person came to drink from the brook, found the wallet, picked it up, and continued on his way. A third person came to drink from the brook. While the third person was still drinking, the first person returned, searching for his lost wallet. The first person asked the third person, "Did you find my wallet?" The third person denied that he found any lost wallet. Seething with anger, the first person then killed the third person. Seeing such a spectacle, Moses was baffled. He asked the Creator for an explanation. Why did the second person get away unscathed? And why was the innocent third person killed? The Creator said to Moses, "Everything you have seen is emes, is truth. The first person stole the wallet from the second person, so the wallet came back to its rightful owner. The third person who was killed murdered the first person's father, something that the first person wasn't even aware of. I arranged things so that the first person would avenge his father's blood. Everyone received what he deserved in absolute justice. The above homily shows how precise divine providence is. Nothing is accidental, random, or happenstance. The Creator directs everything according to an exact ledger. Throughout a person's life, things happen that seem unjust. They appear so because he or she lacks the full picture and all the relevant details. This resembles a person who went to the movies, but he arrived late. The movie was almost over, yet he sees on the screen someone who is mercilessly hitting a woman. His immediate reaction was to yell out at the screen, "Evil one, why are you hitting a defenseless woman?" One of the other moviegoers hissed, "Quiet! If you'd have seen the movie from the beginning, you'd have known what happened. The woman is the evil one, and she deserves much worse than the beating that she's getting." People are the same way, limited in their perception. They don't see an iota of the picture in its entirety. They don't know the past of each soul, its account of credits and debts, or what it needs to rectify. No one knows the background details of why one person's circumstances in life are more difficult and why others have an apparently more advantaged life. If a person had spiritual eyes that could see, he'd know that everything is administered in absolute justice and precise accounting, and he'd have no questions. Questions? No questions?
I have some questions.
Holocaust.
Right. That's like the number one question is the Holocaust.
Well, my question in that scenario is, the person who killed the person, and you said in the reading that he didn't know that that man had killed his own father and that he was actually avenging his father's death.
Right.
So I don't understand how anything good could come from that, because he wasn't acting out of like a holy act.
He wasn't avenging anything.
He wasn't avenging.
He was murdering somebody in cold blood.
He was murdering somebody in cold
Right,
blood.
right.
So to me, it seems like that's not good. It's not good.
Right,
it's
doesn't sit
bad,
well.
What's it called?
Karma?
Karma.
Right.
You know, you're just bringing on.
Right. The Torah, it doesn't. You're right. The story doesn't talk about like what happens to the first person who killed the third person.
Right. So the first person who killed and God explains to him, well, he was doing that. He
was avenging his father.
But it seems to me that we're always being taught intent.
Right.
That if your intent is that you're avenging your father's murder, but if you're doing it just out of anger,
Because you think somebody stole from you.
right?
Right.
You don't have a right to kill because somebody stole from you.
Right. Or I don't know. So we're not talking about religious people or anything like that. It's just people that he saw. But you're right. I guess the point isn't to focus on that. It's just to focus on the fact that what we see, we think is unjust, and because we don't have Emunah. When we have Emunah, we know that Tzaddik Hashem b'chol derechav. We say it in Ashrei 3 times a day. Righteous is God in all his ways. So we can't look at things with human eyes, with limited perception, and say this is fair and this is not fair. This is justice, this is not justice. We can't do that. We have no clue what's going on and why God has arranged for all these people to be together in this room at this time, etc. A person comes to the world to perform a mission. His life in this world is not his permanent life. It begins and ends in accordance with the task that that person must accomplish. When a person dies, even though it may look like an accident, it is the result of a divine decree at the exact time that the Creator determined. One comes to the world to perform a 70-year mission, maybe more, maybe less, and someone else comes to the world to perform a 20-year mission. One person doesn't complete his original allotted lifespan, while someone else obtains added days, months, or years to his lifespan. The considerations are many and mind-boggling, based on debits and credits, past lives, and more, all hidden from our field of vision. So somebody asked me if Jews believe in reincarnation. I said, of course. Some souls come to the world to make a specific rectification. As soon as they accomplish what they need to do, they leave this world and return to their rightful place in the eternal world. Usually, after the death of these souls, people who knew them feel that these were very special individuals, as if they didn't have an evil inclination at all and were lovely, pleasant souls. Therefore, don't be surprised when you see righteous young people who never sinned plucked like flowers from a garden, suddenly and violently. They are taken away because they accomplished their designated mission on earth and corrected that which needed rectification. People forget that this world is not the most important. It's a way station. We're only passing through for a person to perform a certain mission. This lack of awareness is the root of all questions. But those who remember that there is a world to come and that this world is merely a temporary place to perform a mission, suddenly they no longer have questions. Rectifications. The belief in the world to come is a foundation of true Emunah. And this was something that I really had to solidify for myself when I first started becoming observant. I needed to kind of start from square one. And no religion makes sense. No denying yourself pleasure, certain things, and controlling and what day I can use the phone or make I can't drive a car on the Sabbath. None of that makes sense without the framework of an afterlife. If you don't have that basic foundation of Emunah, then what is this all for? Why am I denying myself all these things and living a very controlled life without the framework of an afterlife? So the belief in the world to come is a foundation of true Emunah. Many riddles of life look completely different as soon as a person understands that this world is only a phase of a much greater scheme that started way before the individual was born and is destined to continue after he dies. Chaim Vital, the prime disciple of the father of Kabbalah, Yitzchak Luria, relates the following story that he heard from his teacher and spiritual guide, a true story about a tragedy which jolted the very foundation of an entire community's Emunah in the Creator. A beautiful young lady, daughter of one of the community's most prestigious and respected families, married a righteous merchant, a man of charity and compassion. The early years of their marriage were blessed with happiness, abundance, and children. The modest wife became a wonderful mother, utilizing every free minute from her busy schedule to pray or to care for the community's poor and underprivileged. The husband, whose successful commerce carried him to surrounding cities and hamlets, gave enormous amounts to charities all across the country, easing the suffering of thousands of impoverished people. Suddenly, disaster struck. Their home, a bright beacon of charity, good deeds, and loving kindness, became the scene of agony. A drunken soldier viciously abused, mutilated, and murdered the couple's 3-year-old son. The entire community was appalled. Thousands came to console the grief-stricken parents, including the nation's leading scholars and spiritual leaders. No one understood. Many vocalized the doubts in their hearts in public. Is this the reward that such a righteous couple deserves? Why did the Creator do something so horrendous like that to them? Why did the poor little toddler have to suffer so severely? Others harbored malice in their hearts against the Creator, which weakened their emunah and distanced them from Him. Despite the indescribable pain, the couple reacted with total emunah, capitulation, and loving acceptance of the divine decree. They continued with their righteous lifestyle as if nothing had changed. The wife continued with her acts of loving kindness, and the husband with his spiritual growth and magnificent charity. They didn't give up on God. Shortly thereafter, tragedy struck again. Like wildfire, word spread around the town that the righteous merchant had fallen deathly ill. All the local synagogues mobilized their members in round-the-clock prayer vigils. Everyone loved the merchant. Almost every person in town had benefited from his generosity at one time or another. Understandably, the cries of the community pierced the very thresholds of the heavens. The pain and bewilderment of the entire town reached new heights when word of the righteous merchant's death became common knowledge. Such a young man at the prime of life, didn't he suffer enough? He did nothing but good deeds his entire life. Is this what he deserves? Is this God's beneficent reward for living a life of righteousness? The tears of the young, barely 35-year-old widow tore at the community's already perplexed and agonized heart. Everyone in the community felt a personal loss. No one understood why such a good and righteous husband and father was plucked from their midst. What happened to all of the community's prayers? Didn't they help at all? 2 years now passed. One evening, the newly married son of the young widow came to visit his mother and ask how she was feeling. She tried to smile, but burst into tears instead. "Mama," the young man pleaded, 2 years have passed already. You've cried enough. Our forefathers prescribed set times for mourning. If someone cries more than they should, then sorrow never leaves them. We are believers, ma'aminin. None of us can comprehend divine considerations, but we believe that everything God does is for the very best. Mama, your crying not only saddens us, your remaining children, but it saddens Papa's soul too. The matchmakers have been chasing after you with several good proposals, and you've been avoiding them. Mama, please, you must continue on with your life." The young widow took a deep breath. Enough. She made a firm resolve to overcome the sorrow. An encouraging thought flashed across her mind. Am I more merciful than God? Of course not. I've always trusted in Him, so why shouldn't I be happy? To the relief of her worried children, that very day, Mama became a new person. This was the very best thing that could have happened in their lives. For the first time in 2 years, the widow fell asleep with a smile on her lips. She slept soundly and peacefully. She realized that her lack of emunah, not her husband's absence, was responsible for the gap in her heart. Now that gap was filled again with emunah. She had a dream. She saw herself standing in an exotic garden of supernatural beauty, and she understood this must be the next world. Standing among the aromatic flowering trees, she saw an image of an old man with a long beard, who radiated brilliantly. He approached her and asked if she'd like to see her deceased husband. She nodded in the affirmative, and he led her to a magnificent palace, where a young man was giving a deep spiritual lecture to thousands of elderly, righteous souls. When the lecture was over, the lecturer approached her, and sure enough, it was her husband. "Dearest husband," she exclaimed, "why did you leave me alone at such an early stage in our lives? How have you become the teacher of so many righteous souls? You were a merchant and an upright man, but you were never a clergyman or a scholar." The husband smiled. "I was a great scholar in my previous life, but I never married. I was told that I needed to fulfill the first biblical commandment, namely to be fruitful and multiply. Therefore, I was born for the sole purpose of marrying and having children and to raise them in the path of truth. That's exactly what I did. As soon as I completed my mission on earth, I no longer had to remain down there. Now, as you see, I live a life of eternal bliss, thanks to my completed mission and the Emunah that I learned." "Then why didn't all the prayers that the community prayed do any good for you?" probed the wife. The husband answered, "They did. All the prayers were accepted. Some of them helped elevate me to my current lofty station in heaven, and some were used for the good of others, and some of the prayers were used to rescind harsh decrees. But I finished my task on earth, so I didn't have to stay in the lowly physical world any longer. It looks like the prayers weren't effective, but they were. They were heard and received in their entirety. Since my job was over, I had to leave the physical world. But you still have a job to do. You must remarry, have more children, and raise our children. Your mission on earth is far from over." She then asked, "But why did our little son have to die?" The husband replied, "He was a lofty, angelic soul who had completed all his soul corrections. In his former life, as a baby in the crib, he was kidnapped by a group of robbers who sold babies. Before an upright couple purchased him and raised him to the righteous person who he became, he had nursed from one of the robbers' wives, who was a nasty and wicked woman. After his death, he wanted to take his rightful place in heaven, but he had a blemish on his soul from the time that he nursed from the wicked woman. So he had to return to the world for the sole purpose of nursing from a righteous woman. You were the fortunate righteous woman who was chosen for that task. Not only that, but you, just by virtue of your modesty and righteousness, were granted the tremendous privilege of giving birth to the tender little baby who housed such an enormously righteous soul." "But why was his death so horrible?" the mother cried in anguish, reminded of the horrific way that her baby was murdered. "Our son was destined to die anyway, for he had completed his mission and soul correction on earth. The heavenly court had decreed, in light of the dire sins between man and fellow man in our town, that all its inhabitants be destroyed in a catastrophic pogrom. The righteous soul of our little one volunteered to die a terrible death as atonement for the entire town. He became a righteous martyr and sanctified himself as a public sacrifice. No one is allowed to reach his lofty abode except for me, since I was his father, and when your time comes, as his mother, will also be allowed. You can't imagine the bliss of the divine light which surrounds our son. The husband slowly faded away, but before he departed, his voice reverberated. Only by virtue of your reinforced Emunah was I even revealed to you today. As long as you were in a cloud of sadness, you almost lost another child. All my requests to be revealed to you were refused. My mission on earth had been completed, but you still have much to do. Go remarry and live a life of Emunah and joy. Go with my blessings. Farewell. The husband's image disappeared completely. The widow awakened. She felt like she was born anew. She realized that her questions, as well as the rest of the town's questions, were needless. If the Bible teaches that the Creator is righteous and just, then there's no need to wonder why he does what he does. Those of us who don't merit revelations in our sleep should strive to strengthen our Emunah. The knowledge that the Creator does everything for our eternal benefit should be engraved in our hearts and minds. Now, this is a really important piece. The obsession with the argument. There's a terrible character flaw that is extremely damaging, to the extent that a person could lose his very life because of it. This is the obsession to win an argument at all costs. Sound like modern times? Human nature wants to be right always and to win always. A person thinks that his or her opinions are truth. They're not willing to hear any other opinion. No one can budge them from their preconceptions. They can never acknowledge a mistake, nor are they willing to change their ways. Usually, they scoff at others. This all comprises the obsession to win the argument. A person like this is obsessed with being right and winning. As such, he never finds the truth. Why? In order to find the truth, a person must be willing to sacrifice everything. He must be ready to admit a mistake and to change his life. After he thinks that he found the truth, he must be willing to admit that he was wrong, and once again to change his train of thought, repeatedly if need be. He must be willing to change and to rectify always. Nachman of Breslov writes that truth and the obsession to win the argument are mutually exclusive. For a person who is obsessed with being right and with winning will never admit the truth, even if it's staring him in the face. Understandably, a person must rid himself of this terrible obsession. He can do so by recognizing the limits of human intellect and perception, which is hard because the modern day idol worship is the intellect. That's idol worship in our time. We worship our intellect. People worship wisdom and knowledge. And if I can't prove it on a science table, on a laboratory table, it doesn't exist. So it's all like my intellect or nothing. After all, what are we? We're not the Creator. We're only human beings. We know little about ourselves, so we certainly don't know much about creation with its endless wonders, perplexities, and deepest secrets. Not knowing much is a gross understatement of how much we really know. Basically, we know nothing. Therefore, a person doesn't even understand what's happening in his own life, where he has been, where he is going, and what the future holds for him, neither the immediate future nor years to come. Therefore, he lacks the ability to protect himself from periodic calamities, natural occurrences, and other crises. Most importantly, a person must observe and admit that he can't succeed on his own. And if he can't help himself, he certainly can't help his family members and others. As soon as a person is ill in the slightest, all the more so if he's very sick, God forbid, his arrogance becomes totally deflated, for he sees that he cannot control his own life. He has feelings of helplessness, fear, and anxiety. Is this really one day closer to the grave? Decide. Either remain arrogant and feel like you're no one, that there's no one as smart, talented, and successful as you are, where you can even allow yourself to ridicule others. Now admit the truth. You're not genuinely happy, and you're missing the point of your real mission for posterity's sake. Or decide that you have a lot to learn, and that you can learn from every individual, like the old adage that says, the wise person learns from everyone. Take into account that one must go through a number of stages to find the truth. At any given stage, a person might have to dissemble what he assembled. He must be ready to change, but that way his life is enjoyable and always interesting, because that individual is striving towards the ultimate goal that he was created to achieve. A person doesn't have to be a genius to prove Emunah. Only a desire to see the truth. He must shed an obsession to justify his preconception and be willing to listen rather than argue. I know a lot of people like this. Then it's possible to prove the truth in one of two ways. There's the negative way. Sometimes, as with mathematics and science, one cannot prove that a given result is true. So what does one do? One begins a process of elimination to verify what isn't true. Result A, not true. Result B, not true. Result C, not true, and so forth. We finally arrive at a single result that we cannot prove is untrue. Sure, although we can't prove its veracity from a positive approach, the fact that we know that all the other results could be proven untrue, then in a negative way, we prove that this result must be true. Worldly things can be proven easily. Any one of them that a person would choose to devote his life to is not truth. For what would you say? That the ultimate purpose of life is to invest in something finite, which will one day terminate? There can therefore be no ultimate purpose in pursuing anything of a material or finite nature. But Emunah, it's impossible to prove that Emunah is not true. So, using the negative approach, we conclude that Emunah is true. Every person must assess him or herself. Do you want the truth? Can you handle the truth? What are you doing and where is your life going? Rabbi Nachman talks, he says, Ma, what? Like, what are you doing? Where are you going? Where do you invest your talents and resources, your aspirations and your life? Do you feel like you're accomplishing your mission on earth? Do you feel like you're living a life of purpose and meaning? If you're true to yourself, you can easily prove that many things around you are not true. Go from item to item in this world, and you'll find that they are not truth. But when you get to Emunah, you won't be able to prove by any method that it's not the truth. So go ahead and try. We see that with the negative approach, we're almost done.
No, not at all.
No, I just like to prepare you. Last page of this book, of this chapter. We see with the negative approach that we can certainly arrive at the conclusion that Emunah is truth. But that's not enough. Even if a person concludes that this entire world is folly, it will be making progress. But he could still be in darkness. He could ask, if all the world is false, then what is true? He might acknowledge that Emunah is truth, but he hasn't yet internalized it in his heart. What does one do if, despite all the proof in the world, he still doesn't believe? This brings us to the second way of proving that Emunah is truth: to turn to the Creator and speak. Speak to him with simple innocence, and to ask him to show that he's listening. Even if someone who lacks Emunah in his heart and thinks that no one is listening to him when he talks and prays, and thinks that he'd be crazy if he speaks to the thin air, even if he makes a heartless appeal to the Creator, he doesn't believe in him. But he honestly wants to know the truth. He can still turn to the Creator. He should say, quote, "Creator, I want to believe in you. I really do. I want to get to know you. I know that I'm incapable of seeing you, but I want you to do certain things that will show me that you hear me. I want you to do such and such. Please do this for me. Even if at first I'll think it's coincidence, ultimately I'll have to acknowledge that this is truth and that you do hear me." Ask the Creator to help you in an area that you've had prolonged difficulty with. Then, when things suddenly start working out, you'll know that it's God, that by virtue of your prayers, things changed. Speak to the Creator. Don't give up until he helps you to believe in him and to get to know him. Follow this path and you'll see Emunah with your own two eyes. If a person sincerely desires the truth, to believe in and to get to know the Creator, he will listen to every word you say and fulfill your requests, helping you to believe in him. Now, I just want to say something about that. So the book even mentioned it and it touched on it, but the fact of the matter is that efforts were made on my part. I tried for 15 years to lose weight, and I kept trying and trying, this diet, that diet, and nothing seemed to work. And then I learned about prayer price, that every single thing that we want in our lives has a certain cost in prayer. So getting to work on time might be 2 prayers. Please God, please God. But certain other things, we don't know what, could take 20 years of prayer. And unless God comes to you and tells you to stop praying, you must indeed keep praying for those things. So I just kept praying to God to help me lose the weight. And 5 years goes by, and 10 years goes by, and 15 years goes by. And finally, I find this program. I start doing the program. I fail the first time. Then I start again, and now I'm finding success. So it's very obvious. My natural inclination is to be, well, because I finally found this program, and because I tried it and failed and then tried again, that's why I'm being successful. That's what the natural order of things would be. But with Emunah, I understand that I finally prayed enough for it to finally start clicking with the weight loss. And now I've lost 80 pounds since May 5th. and I still have a ways to go, and I still struggle every day to not snack here and snack, and mess up and whatever. But I'm developing new habits of health, and it's really easy to get caught up in the fact that I'm doing the work. Remember we said about how incredible it is to say Hamotzi lechem min haaretz with the prayer that we say on bread. Before we break bread, we say, "Blessed are you, God, who brings forth bread from the earth." So according to the wording of the blessing, it sounds like whole loaves of bread just pop out of the ground. But really, it's like a ton of work to make bread. And here we are at the end of months of labor, and the farmer finally sits down with his finished product that he has sweat and torn his back and his everything just to make all the processing and to finally do it. And then he turns around and says, "Blessed are you, God, who brings bread from the ground." So that's an incredible lesson for us when it comes to our efforts. And by the strength of my right arm have I accomplished this thing. That's a famous quote. It's, and that's really what we do. We get caught up in the fact that because I went to this college and I got this degree and I made, and I researched the right stocks to buy, and that's why I'm successful. And I networked with the right people, and I went to the right events, and I, blah, 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 and I impressed the right people. That's why I'm successful. It's very easy to get caught up in the success and think that it's any of our efforts, but really it's all from God. There have been people who made all the right investments and still failed miserably, and there have been people who bought the penny stock, stupidly, and it turned out to be insanely successful. And so it's really not, we do have to go through the motions. I do have to acquire the wisdom and the knowledge and make a smart decision. But after I make the smart decision, it's in God's hands. So, I have to go to a job interview. I can't just say God will send the money, right? I have to do my hishtadlus, it's called. I have to put in the effort.
How do you spell that word?
Hishtadlut in English, Hish.
S-H-I-S?
No, it's Hish. Tadlut. If you say dati Hebrew, hishtadlut. And if you're of the old school, you say hishtadlus.
Oh, okay.
So, which means effort. Which means you have to go through the motions. You have to keep your hand on the steering wheel. You can't let go of the steering wheel and saying, whatever God wants to happen will happen. No, there will be severe consequences. You can't just say, God will pay my bills. You have to get the job and fill out the resume and go to the interview and do all the things. But meanwhile, at the end of the day, when you leave the interview, you're not trying to kiss the tush of the person you interviewed with. You're not, you're just like, okay, God, I did my efforts. Now, if this is meant to be, it'll be. I put in my effort, and now I don't need to have anxiety. I don't need to have a panic attack. I don't need to wait by the phone anxiously. Whatever's going to happen is going to happen. I did my work. I did the best I could do. Knowing that, boom, Emunah, faith.
Such a sense of peace in that.
Exactly. Like I said, that's why I wanted to start this group, because the anxiety is killing our society. Wow, that rhymes. It really is, though.
We should trademark.
Right, I should trademark that. The anxiety is killing our society. It's killing us. It seems like everyone's suffering from it. It used to be a few people here, maybe there or there. But now it's almost everyone I meet, with a few exceptions, is on some sort of anxiety medication or they're, meditation. They're trying to do something. And some people find different programs that help them with anxiety. They'll do 12 steps, or they'll find something that helps them, yoga, right? But anxiety, because we are in the time now we're in the Messianic era, and the battle that's going on is the battle of Emunah versus everything else. Will I have Emunah in this situation, or will it be dog eat dog? I will destroy anyone I need to get ahead. I will speak Lashon Hara. I will slander people. I will do whatever I need to do to get ahead in life. That's the anti-Emunah world that we're living in now. To try to find happiness with materialism, to find, a person with Emunah is happy with his lot in life, right? And so therefore he's the wealthiest man in the world. Solomon, who is really wealthy. So yes, these are reoccurring themes, but they have to be in order for it to become a realistic day-to-day thing for us. Remember, we said that Emunah it's kind of easy to intellectualize Emunah, but it's bitachon that's the hard work. Bitachon is the hard work. It's where you have to actually, allow the Emunah to soak in. Bitachon, trust in God. Bitachon. Bitachon. So yes, anybody have any thoughts or questions before we wrap up?
I have a lot of work to do.
Well, yeah, and that's why we're here, because we all know these concepts, but we have to start the more we talk about it, the more it's part of our conversation on a daily life, then it becomes realistic. Then it becomes in the forefront of our mind. It becomes a habit, a new habit of health, if you will, right? Because we're creatures of habit, and 90-something% of what we do during the day is habit. So we, the only way to better ourselves is to start replacing some of those negative habits. A lot of it is negative self-talk. And start replacing that with positive talk, affirmations, whatever it is you need to do. Hispodadut is huge. That's really the main teaching of Rabbi Nachman of Breslov is Emunah equals, prayer. Remember, that's what we just said. That once you start working on Emunah, the natural flow turns into prayer and gratitude. And very good, Judy. Thank you for reminding me. Well, yeah, you have to trust that your prayers are being heard and being listened to, right? Emunah in your prayer. You have to have Emunah in prayer. Fake it till you make it, right? So I just want to say that there's this prayer that's been around for a few years, and it's really, really special prayer. I think it was authored by Rabbi Laser Brody, who's the translator of these garden books. He's the English mouthpiece for Rabbi Arush. And he wrote this, and on the booklet that I have, it says that whoever recites this prayer daily, can overturn stern judgments and see miracles.
That prayer.
Yes, this prayer right here that we're about to say. Thank you, Hashem, King of kings and Master of the world. Thank you for the infinite times that you helped me, supported me, rescued me, encouraged me, cured me, guarded over me, and made me happy. And this is great for people who can't do Hispodadut. This is like a little Tinder, this is a little match that helps you get going. Thank you for always being with me. Thank you for giving me the strength to observe your commandments, to do good deeds, and pray. Thank you for all the times that you helped me and I didn't know how to say thank you. Thank you for all the loving kindness you do for me each and every moment. Thank you for every breath I breathe. Thank you, Hashem. Thank you, Hashem, for all the things that I do have. And thank you, Hashem, for the things that I don't have. Thank you for my periodic difficulties. Thank you for my occasional setbacks and for the times when I don't feel happy. Because everything is for my ultimate benefit, even if I don't see that it's always for my best. Deep in my heart, I know that everything that comes from you is the very best for me and designed especially for me, in precision and exacting divine providence of which only the King of Kings is capable. Thank you for the periodic times that are difficult for me, for only that way They enable me to fully appreciate the good times. For only after being in darkness can one truly appreciate the light. Thank you for the wonderful life that you have given me. Thank you for every little thing that I have, for everything comes from you and from no one else. Thank you for always listening to my prayers. Creator of the world, I apologize from the bottom of my heart for all the times that I didn't appreciate what you gave me. And instead of thanking you, I only complained. I am dust and ashes, and you are the entire universe. Please don't ever cast me away. Awesome. Thank you so much, Judy.
In honor of Mrs.
What an amazing way to start your Hesperus. That really gets me going. Whenever I find that my heart is way of Evan, it's like a heart of stone sometimes. When you go to do Hesperus, when you go to practice personal prayer with God, when you're walking, it's like a great time to do it. Sometimes, your mouth, your lips are just kind of sealed. So keep this handy and utilize it. All right. Any questions before we cut out? Concerns, comments? Thank you everyone for coming. Have an amazing week, an amazing Shabbat Shalom. Take care.